Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership podcast with ID3 for Isaiah Drone III. This show was designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in a diverse setting.
All right. This is another night of the Impact of Educational Leadership. This is episode 30. I'm your host, ID3 for Isaiah Drone III. Tonight's panelists are Mr. Rick Beaule and Dr. Barri, Seif. First, we have Mr. Rick Beaule. Mr. Beaule is Bachelor's in Science and Music Education from Indiana University of PA, Master's of Science in Educational Leadership and Administration from Duquesne University, a 17-year teaching veteran in Pennsylvania and Texas, serving currently as president of the Killeen Educators Association and Region 10 of the Texas State Teachers Association, representing over 3,500 educators across Central Texas, currently teaching elementary music in the Killeen Independent School District near Fort Hood, Texas. Our next panelist is Dr. Barri, Seif. She is an instructor, author, and theologian. Her experience has led her through opportunities in sales, Sunday school education, travel, Bible, college instruction, authoring, conference speaking, and twice annual trips to Israel as president of her nonprofit organization, Sar Shalom Israel. In addition, she is currently associate professor with Grace Christian University and the director of online teaching effectiveness. She teaches graduate and undergraduate classes for 4 other universities. Dr. Barri Seif holds a PhD in biblical studies from Trinity Theological Seminary, a MBA from Aberdeen University, and a BA in psychology from Stevens College. Her published works include 3 devotionals, and most recently, her book entitled, Is Christ Really the End of the Law? Ladies and gentlemen, please say hello to the people.
Hi, howdy from Texas, from here.
Howdy from Central Texas.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, tonight's topic is the coronavirus, COVID-19, is causing the world to unite as one. In many cases, it is still unclear how this virus is spread, but we all know that it is moving swiftly around the globe, and organizations are going to continually be stretched very thin. COVID-19 is causing a widespread epidemic in the World Health Organization. It is important, especially for leaders, to display their civic duties. We must continue to follow and watch what other countries are doing. Tonight, my first question is going to Mr. Rick Beaule. Virtual changes we should expect from school leadership in your district and community leaders.
Well, again, Isaiah, thank you for having me on the program tonight. I expect that there are going to be some major changes on multiple fronts as education gets forcibly bootstrapped into the 21st century. While it's an extremely complex undertaking with multiple policy decisions that are going to be needed to make it happen, it still essentially boils down to 3 things. Supply of equipment, access to the internet, and the delivery and assessment of instruction. With the economy in the struggle that it's currently in, unless there's some unexpected and massive aid donated by the private sector, a lot of help is going to be required from the state and federal governments. It's going to be inevitable. So let's break this down a little. On the supply front, districts, the communities they're located in, and at the state and federal levels are being forced now to the realization that everyone really does need internet access. The question now is what the response from those various levels will be now that they know that. Will there be a sweeping effort from the federal level on down, or are we going to end up with the patchwork response that we've seen in terms of social restrictions thus far? I've already heard of several districts loaning out tablets and laptops, and that's a help. Smaller and rural districts, though, are more likely to lack those resources to provide that equipment. So how we handle that issue is going to be critical. Again, state and federal help is going to be essential. The second part is making sure that that equipment that gets loaned out has access to the internet to receive the online instruction being given. And we're already seeing a smattering of responses from districts and the private sector. Spectrum and other internet providers have offered 60 days of free internet. Dallas ISD was discussing purchasing and issuing hotspots to households with students without internet service. In addition to issuing equipment, Killeen ISD is also planning to run a series of classroom presentations on its television station to help cover those currently without a computer or internet access. Now again, those are stopgap measures because the rural areas lack the signal strength to make hotspots viable, so they're either going to have towers built or internet installed around town or in homes. And the cost of building that infrastructure is likely to be considerable. In terms of online instruction, there's good news and bad news. There's a wide variety of delivery methods already available that districts have been using. Killeen has a fairly robust online educational inventory. They use programs like Schoology, Edgenuity, ST Math, RAS, and Imagine Learning, among others. There's other programs out there, including Blackboard, or programs that are specially created for districts to use. And some districts, like Leander, have already implemented those programs to some extent, so their learning curve is going to be lower than others. There's a wide variety of responses, from the very swift creation of online curriculums in a couple of days to a pause in instruction that holds any instruction whatsoever while a more deliberate pace is set for developing a curriculum. Pittsburgh Public Schools, in Pennsylvania, for example, isn't starting their online learning until next week. Killeen's taken a more centralized approach to that instruction, posting general activities for students to explore through their continued learning center while the teachers become more familiar with the tech that they're now expected to use. And there is some hope for districts that lack funding in that free applications like Moodle and Google are potential sources to be used for the delivery of content and instruction. There are even some programs there for specialized courses such as Quaver Music, which offers state-aligned curriculum to students in a cloud-based platform with some interactive options for students. That company, which I and my campus use, has been working to create options to help maximize what is now all digital instruction and offers both student information transfers and single sign-on options through district portals for ease of access and the opportunity for students to create individual accounts for student exploration, creation, and assessment of musical skills. Now, at all governmental levels, one of the primary considerations has to be providing accommodations and services to students with special needs. This is one of the most difficult obstacles to deal with, as nearly all of the IEPs and 504s are set up for brick and mortar learning situations and not virtual. And some of those needs are physically based and can't be done easily online. They are doing some things like trying to get some of the therapy trainings and stuff done via online stuff, but it's still in development and there's a long way to go on it. So it's a big deal, but it's one we have to overcome to give our kids the education they deserve and are required to receive under the free and appropriate public education law or FAPE.
Mr. Rick Beaule, that was fabulous. That was a fabulous job in unpacking that question I asked you, sir. You said several key things. I'm going to hone in on one: needs. That's a powerful word, needs. We are encountering illnesses, deaths, and that are difficult for anyone to understand, difficult for anyone to wrap their minds around. And some of the needs that we need are not only educational needs, but also spiritual needs. We need emotional needs met. We need comfort. My next panelist tonight is one that I have been studying for a while now. She's an author. She does public speaking. She's a content expert, Dr. Barri Seif. Based on, my question to you, based on your biblical studies and experiences, What are we seeing unfold with this coronavirus?
Sure. And again, thank you for having me too, Isaiah. It's real honor. Death has no politics. We all have an expiration date, but we do not know it. God knows it. And so there's an element of suspicion. I think that this is a time that we can be quite sensitive to the needs of individuals around us. We can be an encourager. We can really boldly tell people we are praying for you, God bless you. And I think that the sense of fear and concern can be seen by us who know the Lord. I've noticed that people are really fearful. And I've had to open my home up to some people because we experienced a flood in here a few weeks ago. And so people that I never would have normally have had the opportunity to meet, there's an opportunity to say, God bless you, or I'm praying for you. To me, that is putting the feelers out, putting the sensors out. And everything's online for church, for worship, and so we can't invite people to the home, but we've got an opportunity to be bold in our faith about Jesus. We want to have courage. My husband has several jobs. He works as the director of the police academy, which with Rick's commentary, he had to go from a face-to-face traditional format to this week going online, which he's not comfortable with at all. Also another college where he teaches Christian college, of course, a New Testament survey and hermeneutics, they've had to go online rather than in his lecture format. So he's had to change, but he just left because the police are looking for individuals to work, law enforcement part-time, to work at the testing centers. He did that Friday and Saturday. So he has an opportunity to share just the love of God, whether it's comfort as well. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us as believers to just do what we can in loving our neighbor, just checking on them. Last night I sent out about 20 emails to people. Some of them were in Israel. Hi, how are you? How are you doing? I've been praying for you. Let me know how you are. And just to let them know, and I got some beautiful responses back. And, backtracking too, because I've been watching Israel. I'm just going to take a minute here. I didn't key into China other than I have a niece that is from China who was teaching in China and had to come back to the United States around the end of February. And then I watched Israel because I was scheduled to go to Israel March the 12th, and I had to postpone that trip because of the clampdown that Israel was doing and Delta was doing. And now our group trip in May is being threatened as well, that we might not be able to do that. So rather than complain, I think that we can demonstrate Nehemiah 8, where it says, the joy of the Lord is our strength.
Dr. Seif, thank you again for that response. It was very heartfelt, and it was very in-depth in my feelings and my emotions. What's exciting in listening to you speak, to hear the different leadership styles across different domains, the business sector, of course the educational sector, and even the community. You are seeing in churches, you are seeing leaders adapt and overcome. Mr. Beaule was talking about earlier, you're seeing this new virtual reality classroom infrastructure that was already there, but now it's almost like as if we're being forced to use it now. We're being forced to partake of it now. And so now it's almost like we're in outer space. It's totally unclear. We're going to need faith to get through this. Mr. Beaule, let me ask you a question. How are the parents How are the parents and the students in your district responding to these virtual classrooms, and how are they handling this crisis?
I would say on the whole pretty well. Anytime you crash start an entire paradigm shift in instructional delivery method, you're going to have some glitches and fits and starts. For example, today there were several crashes of programs, and I think the servers were overloaded at some point, not only in the district but around town. So you get those typical technology crashes. You also have some teachers who naturally gravitate towards virtual learning and technology, and some who are still, shall we say, very firmly planted in the physical world, so they have a steeper learning curve. There's been some instances where I know of where students have tried online learning and have shifted back to paper packets instead. I'm not sure today what with the diagnosis of a Waco ISD principal with COVID-19 and he was handling some of those packets, if it might shift kids back to online instruction. I think that'll happen anyway. But some of the shifts to paper packets involve, in cases where there's multiple students in a household with only one computer. So it's virtually impossible for them all to receive the day's virtual instruction. So until we get laptops or extra devices out to them, the paper makes more packets. Paper packets make more sense, excuse me. So as those supply and access and content delivery flips get worked out, I think you're going to see, like I said, more of those students drifting back to the online learning, and you're going to see the content delivery and assessment become more effective, and you're going to start to see teachers really start to stretch their legs and innovate once they hit their stride. And I think it's going to be quite exciting, actually.
Ms. Beaule, thank you again for that response. In this current situation, we're hearing a lot of great suggestions that are going on, but we also have to hone in on the fact that we have to continue mentoring these students. If we're going to give active guidance, and we have to make sure that we as teachers get the training and get the materials that they need to do the right thing, and that's guidance on every domain. Educational sector, of course, community leaders, church leaders, you name it. We have to still remain active in guiding those people that we lead and that follow us, or that we are developing to become the next leaders. And so with that being said, Dr. Seif, what formations do leaders need to access to build more resiliencies in facing the demands and the responsibilities to their loved ones?
What factors? Okay, well, I always speak from a Christian perspective, and so honestly, after walking with the Lord for 40 years, I still cannot really face the day without spending some time in the Bible to be encouraged. If David encouraged himself in the Lord, then who am I to think that I'm any smarter than King David? And so I have seen through my own experience that by spending, 15, 20 minutes reading the Bible, looking at the Word, and the Bible is alive. God's Word is alive. It's living. It speaks to our hearts. And we see in the Bible plagues. We see in the Bible victories, wars, battles. And at times, we go to battle. And it took my husband to point this out to me. He has this thing about saying movies that are action movies, especially if they have to do with early first century battles and the Ottomans and the Mamelukes, and he loves these things. And he pointed out how military God's Word is. And when I finally realized that, I realized that, a good leader has to turn their back on the crowd in order to lead the orchestra. And so there are going to be things that you're going to need to do that are going to give you inner strength to be able to do the job at hand with leadership. Because of what Rick shared about the paradigm shift, I don't care what president this is. I look at the people under the president too who are giving the information. I don't want opinions. I want facts. And Isaiah, as you know, you are a doctoral student. You can't go and give 200 pages of your opinion. You have to take your views, your analysis, and then back it up with scholarly facts and bring something new to the table.
As we're looking at mentorship, as we're looking at improvement in school environments, right? This is the ecosystem. This is the ecological system. This is the system that you have to have church, because it's a religious institution, no matter what your faith is, right? It comes into play because it has to exist in the family. It exists in the school, whether you hone in on a specific religion or not. The religious institution is there. Maybe some people want to call it the elephant in the room, but it is there. It's also in your neighborhoods. It's also between your peer interactions, because it's necessary. It's necessary for positive youth development. It's necessary. It's necessary for childhood development, in other words, because we know people come from different backgrounds, right? But it is the word called faith, like Dr. Seif so eloquently mentioned and so boldly mentioned, that you have to have in order to develop. So I like the response. I really did. So my next question, with that being said, Mr. Beaule, I know we went a little deep there, but I know you can handle this, sir. How are teachers and administration in your district responding to these virtual school board meetings?
The teachers seem to generally enjoy the virtual staff meetings. Again, you know, when you're stuck in your homes, face-to-face contact is always welcome. Killeen ISD's only had one emergency board meeting since the closures began, and though the chairs were widely spaced, it wasn't virtual, so I was able to go into that room. The first virtual meeting is actually scheduled for tomorrow night. A lot of the decisions pertaining to the crisis have been handled by central administration, which has been no problem for some members and caused issues with others. The district does have on its agenda for tomorrow night the suspension of leave and pay policies, which will enable them to pay employees and not force them to use leave, for which I'm grateful. And those were two of our big concerns, and the third being a guarantee that the district remains closed until health experts give the okay to return. But I would say on the whole, teachers are resilient and adaptive people, and we're pretty good at adjusting on the fly, even in a big situation like this. So they're doing pretty well.
And that's needed for guidance, right? We have to have that. We have to have that. And so with that being said, let me go into, because I want to talk about like the one-to-one mentoring. I want to talk about how are you going to, when school starts back, how we're going to play football games, how we're going to play basketball games again, how we're going to get back together as a people, right, as one unified nation. By the way, we're called the United States of America. So that word unity is the premise of what this nation is all about, or should be all about. We have to be these delegates, right, that go out there and make sure that these principles stand true no matter what opposition, right? We still have to assemble. We have to come together no matter how far. We got to get there. We got to make things happen. With that being said, Dr. Barri Seif, my next question is for you. Will social distancing negatively affect faith-based organizations in the future? And how shall they overcome this coronavirus pandemic? is my question.
Well, I really don't think that social distancing is going to affect faith-based organizations at all. I think we're going to be so celebratory that I really am trusting that this time when each of us has been sequestered or we've been grounded, not for bad behavior, we've just been grounded. There's going to be so much of a celebratory attitude and just the ability to assemble again. I was thinking about that verse in Hebrews, let us not forsake the assembling of one another, but we have been required not to assemble. But I really believe when we get together, it's going to be joyous. And as you were introducing Rick, I thought, I have never not enjoyed Resurrection Sunday in a house of worship until this year. And that really broke my heart last night when I heard that this is going to go through Easter. I'm actually praying that we'll be surprised, but I don't think that that's going to be reality. I do believe that we're going to be required to enjoy Resurrection Sunday, Easter in our own residences, and then there'll be a later time that we can really celebrate. So I'm really expectantly looking forward to that time. About 40 years ago, over lunch, a customer shared with me Isaiah 53, verse 6. All of us like sheep have gone astray. Each is turned to his own way, but the Lord has taken the iniquity of us all on him. And I recognized that he was telling me about Jesus, my Messiah, in the book of Isaiah, which I had no idea. I knew it was the Holy Scriptures. I just knew it was the Old Testament, but that was about it. But it changed my life. So I always would go to church. My husband, again, he's got several jobs, and he is a congregation leader for a Friday night fellowship for Jewish and non-Jewish believers who want to know more about the Jewishness of Jesus, or Yeshua, his name in Hebrew. But we also, and we observe the biblical feasts like Passover. We have a Passover dinner called the Seder. We do have a service that is about Rosh Hashanah, the New Year. We talk about the Day of Atonement, but we realize that our forever atonement is in Jesus. So we bring in the Jewishness and the Jewish aspect of Jesus, but it's without the resurrection, our faith is nothing. And so we also attend a little local church here in our town in Texas.
Dr. Seif, thank you again for that response. Mr. Beaule, let me ask you a little bit. Let me ask you one more question before we come to a close tonight. How do you, because I'm going to ask you kind of like the same question here, how do you think this social distancing phenomenon will affect America, affect students, affect teachers in the future? Just give us an honest response.
I am hopeful. I am hopeful that a lot of the habits that we have allowed ourselves to drift into, where we are negative and toxic towards each other, that we will start to look past those. I am hopeful that when we get to finally see each other in person, that we will cherish that more than we have lately. I am hopeful that we will learn from what we are experiencing here and use it to model our future behavior once this crisis passes. And I am hopeful that it will bring us together as a society, as a community, as educators, as students, as parents, and that we will be more aware of each other's needs, and how we can work to get along.
I love their response. Because tonight our topic is the coronavirus, COVID-19, and it is causing the world to unite. And when I use the word unite, I mean in peace.
Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership podcast with ID3 for Isaiah Drone III. This show was designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in a diverse setting.